Good evening and welcome to the Milford Planning Board meeting of Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. The meetings are on Milford TV. This one is actually also a remote public hearing, which required advance registration. With that, I will open the meeting, and we have enough to do our meeting minutes. So I will take a motion on the meeting minutes from our last meeting.
A motion to accept the meeting minutes.
Motion by Chris.
Tuesday, January 2nd.
Second, babe.
Motion by Chris to
Babe.
accept the meeting minutes
I
from...
second.
Thanks, Babe. January 16th, seconded by Babe. Any further discussion? Hearing not, all those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 3. We have no 81Ps on. We do have a 702 public hearing, but I'm going to push that off in the hopes that our fourth member shows up before we start the public hearing. So we'll continue with our agenda. We have the continued amended site plan for 146 South Main Street, New York Capital Investment Group. And I think that's the one that you told me, Larry, they...
Debbie's letters in the packet right after the,
You on your way then? Okay, yeah, we kind of need 4 guys.
So on behalf of the applicant, we kindly request to continue our planning board public hearing scheduled for 1/16 to February 6th meeting. The reason for this request is to finalize the traffic study prior to our meeting with the planning board. So you do believe they have an engineer under contract and they are working on this, Larry? Because
I got...
turnaround to the 6th is still going to be pretty quick in
Yeah, I got the impression from his email that he did, so, I mean, you could always go the following meeting. The second meeting in February is the 20th.
With that location, them submitting it doesn't do us any good. We're going to need a peer review of that in order to make sudden judgment on it.
No, I don't know.
No?
I don't know. I don't know that you will.
What,
I'm more worried about the intersection itself at the
at South Main Street?
yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be whether or not we're getting to the point of needing a signal there, no?
Well, that always exists there. I mean, the problem's going to be that's not an easy location to signalize, especially because of Court Street being so far offset. It makes for a mess. I mean, at one point in time, we did have a plan in here because of the development on the other side that would have realigned Court Street and would have made that possible. With that not there, I mean, it would be good to know that as part of that, and that would definitely require a peer review of it, at least to know. I don't know that the applicant's going to be able to do that, but at least we'd know, yes, that would be the thing to do, and whether the town wants to buy land to straighten out Court Street or whatever, we could at least have a plan going forward. That type of review is going to take a peer review of that. The thing that I'm worried about is if you try to signalize that with Court Street being offset, the timing to allow for the clearances is going to take up so much time. I think we're going to bottleneck the whole thing. Is what I mean. That's me. Yeah, that's me saying that. It would be much better if there was an actual assessment done that shows that.
I guess.
Could we have her get in touch with the engineer and have him put that as part of his review?
To make sure.
Rather than we have...
Yeah, but
Again, rather than to hire a peer reviewer all the time, I mean, they're hiring an engineer that's...
Yep. Yeah, and I think if we are comfortable with the counts that are being used and the analysis isn't that bad. But that being said, I'm worried about being back here on February 6th and...
Oh, no, I understand.
Yeah, so I guess my thought was that we were we were likely not going to have them signalize the intersection, even if that's what the engineer comes back with. So I don't know that we necessarily need to have a peer review tell us that the analysis he did is correct, because we're not going to be forcing him to do it anyway. We're
This
doing
applicant's only the owner of the east
easterly
property,
parcel.
not the west property.
Yeah, that's not to say you can't, I don't think that's to say you couldn't require,
No, it's just more
I
complicated.
just
more
think-
complicated.
Yeah, I
He's
just
already
want,
got a special permit from the ZBA.
yeah, I just want to be comfortable that the analysis is correct only because of the implications. And, you know, implications possibly downstream. I mean, it's something that it is a bad spot in town. It is something that, you know, if ever the town decides that they're going to look at in funding traffic improvements in town, it would be good to
That would
have
be
that
a-
information in the
yeah,
background as
without-
opposed to having to do it in the front end. I want to make sure that we're comfortable that the analysis we get provides for us to do that. But if you're comfortable that, you know, yeah, I don't have a problem with them talking to the applicant's engineer, make sure that those types of things are covered when we get it, to just go ahead with that report as it comes back in. And I don't, I mean, personally, and I guess that's a board decision, but yeah, I don't, based on this change, I don't think we could force, I don't think it's appropriate to have them put in a signal.
No.
But I would like to know if we're
Right.
there or not.
Right.
That would be my end.
I agree.
Yeah, I was wondering, you know, if they're able to produce that report on February 6th, you know, and whether we're comfortable or need more time, we can continue it on from there. So at least give them the opportunity to produce that report on February 6th, and based on our review, what pathway we would go next, and it may, again, be another continuance.
So,
There may be,
But at least give them the
I'm not-
opportunity to produce.
I think everything else has been done, so this
Right.
is
This is it. Right.
So I think their expectation is when they get it,
Right.
in, and I just want to make sure that one, staff has enough time to review it. 'Cause
Exactly.
it comes in on the 6th, and, you know, we're going to tell them we need an extension, and
so, like, I'm not a traffic engineer.
Right.
So, you know, there are certain things that I would feel comfortable with reviewing, but there's others that I think are beyond my scope of, you know, I think it makes sense to hire a peer reviewer. So I think if you want, I guess I,
you know who they're using? Larry, did you know who they were using?
I don't know. I can't remember if he actually
I
said
mean,
who it was.
we
or
have
not.
we have a while before you set the agenda for this meeting, Larry.
Yeah,
What I'd rather do is do an extension to the second meeting in February, and if they have the materials, we can always push it to the meeting before,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So that way, we've dealt with it, and you can reach out to the applicant, you know, go
Talk
over
to the
what we've
engineer.
just said,
Yep.
and see who's doing the work and stuff, and we can go from there, and then make a judgment.
Yep, that sounds like a plan.
So with that being said, I'd entertain a motion to continue us to the second
I'll make
meeting
a
in
motion, we continue it to the second meeting in,
second meeting in February, which would be 20th.
Yep,
Motion by Babe to continue to February 20th, subject to if they get the things in, we will move it up to the February 6th meeting. Seconded by Chris. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. It is
right, might as well do number 4.
Yeah, we can do 4 while Joe settles in. We have the lot releases. Lot 1, Old Cedar Court definitive plan, Old Cedar LLC. This is from Neil Bingham. As you know, this is the Old Cedar Court is the area behind Wendy's. Applicant is closed on the purchase of I'm just reading from their letter to us. They've closed on the property shown as Lot 1. Relevant to this request for release, applicant has recorded the plan, conditional approval contract, 2 DEP orders of condition, trail easement, and easement plan, and the discontinuance plan for Old Cedar Street. In lieu of a bond, the town and applicant agreed upon the terms of the conditional approval contract with the recording of these documents, each of which has been provided to the planning department. In particular, conditional approval contract, there is nothing standing in the way of the release of Lot 1. For the foregoing reasons, the applicant is requesting the release of Lot 1.
I attached a copy of the executed and recorded
Conditional approval.
contract,
Yep.
so that seems appropriate to go ahead and do the lot release.
Yep. Any questions from the board?
We don't need a bond for this lot release?
Well, that's what the conditional approval contract is for. Normally, you would go through this process in residential subdivisions, but in this case, this is the only lot that's actually created, development lot that's created by the subdivision. The street's going to stay private, so you got the contract in lieu of the bond.
So
So
if
this'll-
if they don't want to, if they construct everything but don't finish the, sorry.
Well, this allows them to get a building permit to start building under the special permit.
There's nothing the only thing there's nothing that holds back anybody else. They can't get an occupancy until we release saying it's completed. There's
Right.
no one else that's impacted by this, so it's not like, nor is the town impacted by this because we're never taking it over.
Right.
So there's no real reason for a bond. If they don't complete, they don't get an occupancy.
This is more of a
So that's-
technicality to make sure that the building official has the
But the-
proper documentation
Yeah.
that he legitimately could issue the building.
I just wanted to make sure,
Yeah.
that's all.
The
Yeah,
occupant,
if
the
anybody else,
occupancy-
if it was 2 lots, then we would need. But seeing how they're the only owner of the lot. Any other questions? Pleasure of the board.
I make a motion to release the lot.
Motion by Babe to release Lot 1 of Old Cedar Court. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Chris. Any further discussion? Hearing not. All those in favor of releasing Lot 1 for Old Cedar Court will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous at 4.
All righty.
Let's go back to, seeing how we're past 7:02. The public hearing. Application of RTE 85 Realty Corporation for special permit approval regarding construction of a 191,700 square foot wholesale facility and associate off-street parking on 116.87 acre undeveloped property located on the westerly side of East Main Street, southwest of Wildwood Drive, known and numbered as 0 East Main Street, Assessors Map 30, Block 0, Lot 34, in the Business Park Zone. Larry, do you want to,
Read the notice.
yeah,
Milford Planning Board, Town of Milford, Mass. Notice of public hearing on Tuesday, January 16th, 2024, in Room 3, the Milford Town Hall, 52 Main Street. The Milford Planning Board will, at the times designated, conduct public hearings regarding the following: 7:02 p.m., application of Route 85 Realty Corp. for special permit approval regarding construction of a 191,700 square foot wholesale facility and associated off-street parking on a 116-acre undeveloped property located on the westerly side of East Main Street and southwest of Wildwood Drive, known and numbered as 0 East Main Street, Assessors Map 30, Block 0, Lot 34, BP zoning district. The full application and/or maps of the above items are available for public inspection at the Office of Planning and Engineering, Town Hall, 52 Main Street, Milford, Mass. 01757, during normal business hours. Per order of the Planning Board, this legal notice was published in the Daily News on January the 2nd and January the 9th, 2024.
I think the way I'll do this is, I'm just going to read staff comments into the records first, and I'll turn it over to the applicant. They can go through the presentation. If there's people in the audience after the presentation and after the board has any questions, I'll open it up to the audience for any questions that they may have. Please try to direct them back to the board, not to the applicant, because we'd like to try to make sure that we keep that communication through that mechanism. So the first set of comments that we have is from the town planner. The applicant is requesting special permit approval to construct a wholesale building and associated parking. Wholesale with storage uses are permitted in the BP Business Zone District by special permit approval from the planning board, and provided that such developments are limited to an area not to exceed 25% of the overall acreage of the contiguous BP district within which they are located, or to a parcel not to exceed 10 acres, whichever is less. The subject property, for those members that are familiar with it, is formerly known as the Robsham property, has been the focus of multiple development proposals in recent past, including Oakmont 1 subdivision in 2000, Oakmont 2 subdivision in 2002, the Village at Kingsway planned residential development in 2008, the casino proposal in 2010 through 2013, Robsham Village, which was a 40B in 2016, and the Brookview 40B in 2018. With this submittal, the current applicant is proposing the construction of a 191,700 square foot wholesale building and approximately 200 associated parking spaces on the subject property. The overall size of the undeveloped property is 116.87 acres, and the actual development parcel is to be 10 acres. This is due to the contiguous acreage of the BP district in this area being 263 acres, and 25% of that area is 65.75 acres, well in excess of the 10-acre maximum. Town planner has reviewed the applicant's materials and site development plans that have been submitted and notes the following. The actual proposal use has not been specified beyond the general wholesaling with storage reference. A specific business or enterprise should be identified to assure the planning board is able to make the necessary findings to grant the special permit. The plan submitted should be revised to exclude parcel 30.0.35, 460 East Main Street as part of the development. Parcel 30-0-35 is within the RC Rural Residential District and cannot be part of the proposed development without being rezoned. Separate 81P should be prepared for the required district distinct 10-acre maximum area wholesale use parcel. Considerable amount of regrading is being proposed to the north of the building, well beyond the limits of the proposed 10-acre development parcel. A building floor plan is yet to be provided with the development plans. It is advisable for the board to require a peer review for the traffic impact study. Therefore, Larry is recommending to continue to allow sufficient time to secure a peer review consultant and to evaluate the traffic impact study. There's a letter from the fire department. One additional hydrant is requested southeast of the building. Use the gas service line as a reference point where it intersects. I won't go through where they want to put it, but a new hydrant there. Proposed hydrant located across from the transformer pad to be moved further north by 40 to 50 feet. No parking, fire lane, tow zone signs, or pavement text should be installed, marked in the following locations, and he lists those locations. Board of Sewer voted to approve, as it's not on sewer, it's on septic. Highway Department, the section is under Mass DOT. All road opening permits will have to be obtained from them. Trench permits must be obtained from the Milford Highway Department. Board of Health doesn't have any comments. We did get a letter from the Water Department, which unfortunately, or fortunately, really just goes through means and materials, it makes no comment on the actual design. With that, I'll open it up to the applicant for their presentation.
Well, good evening. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm not allowed to start my video yet. Every time I click on it, it says I cannot start my video because the host has stopped me. So, I assume you can hear me, correct?
We can hear you, Joe, if you can hear us.
I can hear you fine. I've watched everything so far, so thank you. I appreciate that. For the record, Joseph Antonellis on behalf of the applicant, Route 85 Realty Corp. Tariq Fiad, who is the representative of Route 85, is before you tonight. as is John Kuchitz from Bowler Engineering. I can't tell who else is there from Bowler and our traffic engineer, but I'll let John handle the introductions on that when he gets to showing you the board. Again, thank you for the opportunity to do this by way of Zoom. Appreciate the extra effort that was put into it by your staff. That was very accommodating to me. I think I want to start off with one point. Larry's letter, Mr. Duncan's letter, references the lack of identification of the tenant for the building, and we are certainly aware that your board has concerns about that to make certain that the use is what we've applied for. I've been doing land use law for the better part of the last 30 years and have spent a significant amount of my career in front of your board. And I've also worked in many other towns, and I have permitted some very large buildings that were typically identified as warehouses. And I can represent to you that in each and every one of those circumstances, when I've sat before the board, I have been unable to identify to the board who the tenant is. There's a reason for that. It is commercially impossible to get a commitment from a major corporation or company to lease a building unless and until they know that you have the right and ability to construct the building. Again, I've gone through this now significantly over the last 5 years. Do we have an idea of what type of tenant we'd want for this building? Absolutely. We believe that we can find tenants that will fit within the definition of wholesaling with storage. Your zoning bylaw carefully defines what wholesaling is, and coincidentally, that definition matches up very nicely with the definition of wholesaling in Black's Law Dictionary, which simply stated is the selling of goods and products to retailers or jobbers. That's the Black Law Dictionary definition of it. Your definition of it meets very nicely in that. So I could give you an example. When you sell to retailers or jobbers, you're not selling to the general public. You are selling to people who are going to take the product that you are storing, and they're either going to manipulate it, change it, merge it with something else, or take it in the form that you have and resell it. This is not something that is unique to Milford. When you have a company like Mass or Maine Oxy, which I believe is located on Summer Street, that is a company that takes cylinders of oxygen, acetylene, and other types of gas and distributes them to various customers, none of whom are probably in their home using a acetylene torch. These are going to companies, contractor sites, etc. So the distinction would be is that we're going to need to find a tenant who has a business that is to sell product, goods, and other things to retailers. In my early discussions with Larry, I talked about something, to use an example. I permitted an O'Reilly's auto parts store in Milford. So presume arguendo that O'Reilly Auto Parts needed a distribution center. What we would have would really be a wholesale facility that would be taking auto parts and bringing them to all the O'Reilly stores. At the same time, that same building could also be bringing auto parts to Advanced Auto or some other form of auto company. This is obviously a distinction that has to be made because it is my understanding that the town of Milford is not interested in having another quote-unquote warehouse. And this is not going to be a warehouse. It will be a wholesaling building where wholesaling takes place. Now, again, I understand the frustration and the difficulty in you don't know who's going to go there, but neither do we. And we can't know that unless and until we get this approval. So perhaps we can set this back at some other time for further discussion as the meeting progresses. I recognize that we will not be done tonight. I recognize that there's significant work that needs to be done relative to some changes in the plans and also to make certain that the traffic report meets up to what your peer review wants it to. But again, I wanted to just start off with that part of the discussion because I think it's important for all of you to know why we're coming in now. Because we can't find a tenant without getting the approval. And again, I recognize that the user is going to have to fit within the category. As this board knows, this is a special permit and site plan combination. So with the special permit, your board is going to have some authority and leeway to write appropriate conditions that I believe will make you certain that the end user of this building will fit within the category that is defined in your zoning bylaw. And if that presentation, which might be a little bit more long-winded than I hoped, is okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to turn it over to John so that we can get into the site plan aspects of it. I will obviously reserve my right to go over the special permit criteria once the meeting has been developed and we're all a little bit further along in what has to be done relative to compliance on the site plan and any other factors that come up during the meeting. Thank you.
Great. For the record, John Cusick with Bowler Engineering. I do want my little plan back up. I'm going to stand over here to try to be out of everybody's way and point to the board. But again, John Cusick, professional engineer and principal at Bowler. We have Tim Hayes, who's a senior project manager, professional engineer with me as well from Bowler. And Jason Adams is our traffic consultant with Bowman Associates. I plan on just giving a kind of a high-level presentation, talking about some existing conditions, proposed conditions, and turn it over to Jason to talk traffic. If you want to stop me if I'm not getting into enough detail, or wait to the end of the presentation, whatever your preference is. But as you heard, the property is 0 East Main Street, and you can see where it's located here. Just to give you the perspective, this is 495. That's the quarry. This is the site right next to that. It's opposite. It's on the north side of East Main Street. It's generally opposite Whispering Pine is the roadway right down here, to put that into perspective for the location. It's a large site. It's about 116 acres, as was mentioned, and it is business park zoned. So as was mentioned, we're looking to put a building up of approximately 191,700 square feet. You'll have parking, you'll see on the north and western sides of the building. Here it's about 160 parking stalls. And then the truck court would be on the east side, about 41 loading bays, give or take, and then same with trailer storage located there. For those that are familiar with the property, it's pretty constrained. It's a large property, but there's wetlands on site, there's some rock, there's some topo, there's some challenges there that we needed to take a look at. So before laying out the building, we took all of that into consideration and felt as though the best location for the facility was right here, which is set back quite a ways, you'll notice. It's probably, not quite, but pretty close to halfway into the site. A couple purposes for that. Number one, that's really the biggest area of contiguous land that we have. And number two, what I think is a nice byproduct is it provides really nice natural buffers to remain between what we're developing and the essentially abutting surroundings. Put that into perspective, it's probably about 900 feet, depending on where you measure from the corner down to Main Street, and maybe about 700 feet from there, heading over in that direction. So very well set back from the surroundings. One of the challenges associated with that, obviously, is the infrastructure. We've got to put in this roadway here to service the building. So we located the roadway where we did for a couple of reasons. We wanted to offset it from Whispering Pine Drive, and Jason will talk about this, which has a proper offset distance as well as optimal site distance in either direction. So that will be a part of the conversation you'll hear in a bit. But anyway, heading into the site, it's about a 36-foot wide roadway, which is appropriate for the use. Goes approximately 1,700 feet to the end. We have provided a turnaround. The purpose of the turnaround is if emergency vehicles come into the area, we want to let them to be able to maneuver and get back out of the property without having to traverse the site if they choose not to. That was the addition of that. From a grading standpoint, as I mentioned, the site slopes all over the place depending on where you're at. The finished grade of the building is approximately 333. Our connection point on the road is about 320. So you get about 13 feet, which is really over that distance. It's pretty much at grade is how it will look. We do have a couple of crossings. You'll notice these blue areas are existing wetlands on site. They bisect the entire property. They're all over it. We located the driveway to try to minimize the crossing locations associated with that. We will be making full filings to the Conservation Commission. We wanted to make our first stop here first. But we do have 2 crossings for the road here and here. They are what will be determined as limited crossings. There's no other way to access the property from our frontage short of going through there. So we try to minimize the impact to those crossing points. Once you're in the site, there are no wetland fillings within the remainder of the property. We try to locate the building where it would fit best. We worked within the grades of the site, generally balance the site. We'll have some cuts in the middle, some fills on the outside, but generally worked with the earthwork that we have. We'll have a wall located right along this corner here as we get close to the wetland. Beyond that, we're just grading off the sides of the site. We will have some pretty significant crossing structures that go through the wetland, so those will have be a structural component to get through there and just keep all the stream crossing standards and all the stuff that we need to do there. From a stormwater management standpoint, obviously designing it in full compliance with the state standards, keeping the drainage patterns the way that they're going today, making sure that we're not increasing rates of runoff leaving the site. How we're doing that is we have, for the building, there's an underground system located here. Essentially, everything will go to that underground system and then discharge out in that location before heading back to where it goes today. Along the road coming in, there's a couple of small basins. We actually really right here and a couple of water quality units along the end there. From a utility standpoint, you heard there's no sewer in the vicinity. Actually, I think sewer's down this way when you look at it. But there's no sewer, so we're putting a septic system, very low sewage generators for these types of uses. So we have a septic system that we're going to locate in this area here. That will require permitting with your Board of Health once we get through the process and understand the tenant. That will be undertaken. There is a water main in East Main Street. We will be connecting to that along with gas and electric, bringing those utilities up the road with water. Will loop the building. We've got hydrants all the way across the building. We did hear the comments about making tweaks to some of those locations. Absolutely, we'll work with staff and any other town boards and interested parties that have comments and concerns and make sure that the final plan addresses all of those. Part of the project, we did submit landscape and lighting plans to you. Everything is fully contained on the property based on how far everything is. There's zero spillage or anything like that. Landscaping, we do propose landscaping along the perimeter of the site. The reality is the landscaping is the undeveloped buffer that's going to be remaining based on how far back this is set from the main road. So with that, I can turn it over to Jason and then maybe answer questions at the end if that works best for the board.
That's fine.
Okay, great.
Thanks, John. For the record, Jason Adams with Bowman. I'm a professional engineer, traffic engineer, and we were hired to review the impacts of the project. We prepared a traffic impact study. I understand from the comments received that we expect the traffic impact study to be peer reviewed. So welcome that technical discussion later, but if the board pleases, I can go over our methodology, and then similar to John, happy to answer questions. So our study focused on the project site driveway and then intersections along East Main Street to the south and west, the signalized intersection of Fortune Boulevard and Beaver Street, and then north and east of the project, the unsignalized intersections of Whispering Pine Drive, Adam Street, and Rockland Street. We collected traffic volume data during the weekday morning and weekday afternoon peak periods in November of 2022 when we were first getting going on this project. Those traffic volumes were brought forward to the existing year of 2023 when we submitted the impact study, and then forecasted out into the future year of 2030 based on conversations with Larry and town staff about what to include for future growth. We forecasted the number of vehicle trips expected to be generated by the project using data published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and then we distributed those vehicle trips onto the study area using a combination of U.S. Census Journey to Work data and a review of existing travel patterns. With those traffic volumes, we then analyzed the operations at each of the intersections within our study area, with and without the proposed project, to understand if there are any impacts. And given the use and I think the description that our attorney and project team have presented, we feel it's going to be a fairly low traffic generator. Our analysis shows that there's not much of an impact, so really not a significant impact due to the development of the project. As John mentioned, we did work with his team to properly site the driveway along East Main Street. The focal point of that was to provide appropriate site distance for both passenger cars and the trucks that would be expected to use the driveway. So the way that John and his team have laid this driveway out, we accommodate appropriate required site distance for both vehicles traveling along East Main Street to see vehicles coming in and out of the site, and vehicles at the site driveway to make appropriate and safe decisions to enter and exit the site. So with that, we feel the conclusions of our study indicate there would not be a noticeable impact on the surrounding roadway network.
Anything else? I guess I'll open up board comments. I guess my one concern, I understand what Attorney Anthony Nellis is saying, and also what you're saying about usage. I hear what you're saying. I also wonder, some of these facilities, I'm familiar with the ITE book and what the average traffic is. However, I know some of these facilities may tend to group their traffic at certain times. I mean, they may all leave in the morning. That isn't what ITE is going to show you. Depending on who the person is, it can be slightly different. And to that extent, a permit that's given and then, oh, well, this is a warehouse, is going to come back to this board, and it's going to be, if everything else is okay, is going to be viewed, to me, it's going to be important at that point in time, because there are assumptions that you have to make that the same as we don't know who it is, you don't know who it is, and you don't know how it's going to function. So if we do approve it based on we don't know who this is going to be, when it does come through, the who it's going to be has to fit into a very narrow what is going to be allowed or not allowed. But I also understand that it's difficult to have a this is who it is type thing. So I understand where you're going from, but it's also difficult for us to approve it under that, and we need to make sure that we are very cognizant of what that is downstream. With that, I'll open up to other board questions. Chris, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, I guess some looking through on just the conclusion side of the traffic study. There's 160 parking spots. There's 41 loading docks and 41 trailer parking spaces. But then the estimated results is 16 vehicle trips in the morning, and then 19 vehicle trips in the afternoon. Was it? Yeah, in the afternoon, and then go through it. Just so overall, it just doesn't add up. Like, why have 160 parking spots, but then you have have this very minimal traffic impact? So I guess I'm trying to weigh why have that much space, but then the traffic impact seems very minimal.
Yeah, I can speak first to the numbers, and then perhaps John can weigh in just on the overall layout of the parking. But those numbers that are presented are singular hours, so that's the peak hour of the morning, the peak hour of the afternoon. It's certainly not to say all of the vehicle trips happen in those hours. It's vehicles coming and going throughout the day. So there is greater propensity to have vehicles stored on site that arrive outside of those peak hours that may come earlier and later. I think over the course of the day, the ITE data indicates that approximately 130 vehicles have entered the site and 130 exit the site, which when you look at those numbers, it means that over the course of the day, it's fairly flat in terms of how vehicles come and go, but there still is a higher number that is projected. The trailer parking and loading docks, certainly there needs to be room to have whatever flexibility the end user has, and as has been said previously, we don't have a specific end user known at this time, so there needs to be some flexibility to make the site attractive to various entities. And John, I don't know if you want to weigh in any more on the...
Yeah, I think just relative to the parking, one thing I'll add is, again, as Jason mentioned, everything is scattered throughout the day, how these typically operate. From a parking standpoint, the way the zoning ordinance is written, and Milford isn't different from most towns. It's based on employees, right? It's not unlike retail or something like that. It might be based on square footage. For this type of use, it's based on employees, is how they do it. So you essentially, for this, it assumes 133 employees, because you have to bank for changes in shifts. Not everybody shows up, and at the same time, there's overlap. So it's a bit of a best practice what you do there. And some tenants might be better than, or might not better, might be different than others with how they operate, but fitting within kind of how the ITE manual shows it and how these generally operate, it's pretty consistent from what the traffic generation is based on what the parking is.
Quickly, more specifically then, does the traffic study cover, say, you're going to have employees that are going to come in for their 8 o'clock shift, and they're going to punch out, say, at 5 o'clock. Does this study take into account 60, 50, 100 employees queuing up at that exit at 5 o'clock when they go home?
So the way that the data is collected is it's a variety of different end users, so that it's not one specific end user that's providing data. And to John's point, there is a lot of different ways that businesses approach this type of use. Some of them may, to the chair's point, have a slightly greater spike than what is projected, and others might have an even flatter distribution across a day. So it's an average of a number of data points. And then as it relates to parking, when you have a shift change, you need a parking spot essentially for each vehicle. So, like 20 employees changing over would need 40 parking spots to accommodate that. Typical parking practices, you also perceive a parking lot to be full at 85 to 90%, so there's an additional buffer that's built in. So really the number of parking allows the flexibility to have those shift changes happen, right? And it also provides enough flexibility to have additional parking as needed. There could be a peak seasonal event or something of the sort, so a little bit of added flexibility.
Yeah, thank you. All set.
Joe? Yeah.
Kind of early, but one of the questions I would have, and I know it's an unknown, we talked about some ideas on or a scope on what's going to be stored in this facility. I'd be curious, are we talking anything from soup to nuts, chemicals? We talked about main oxy. That would be, I have a question and concern about that. I mean, is there any scope or any limitations on what will be stored there?
Yes, I was going to see if Joe wanted to tag in his.
Yeah, he's trying.
You there, Joe?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. I tried to raise my hand, didn't show up. So I think that's a very good question, and I use Maine Oxy as an example because that is what wholesaling is. I think anybody who's familiar with that type of industry. It's a great question. I don't anticipate, with my client's respect for the town of Milford and his development of property in other places, that you're going to see this facility being used for any purpose that would be storage of harmful chemicals or any medical storage or anything like that. I really think it's going to be something that is going to function to serve at retail stores. We understand that it can't serve the general consumer, and that's exactly what we're looking for. I've had the opportunity to represent a company. I'm not at liberty to name them. They're not interested in this site, but they do exactly the type of work that we're talking about here. They have one particular industry or retail business that they supply, and they look to basically form a collaborative with many stores that sell a specific product, and they buy in bulk and then distribute out to those stores because those stores can't buy in bulk. I'll give you, again, another example, if I may. I grew up in Milford, lived my whole life there. My dad, who's been dead forever, owned a drugstore in Holliston, and when drugstores were owned by singular individuals, the McKesson distributor served those drugstores with aspirin, milk of magnesia, all of what were related to what we called sundries in those days. So I anticipate that it would be a customer or a user similar to that is servicing retail stores that cannot buy large quantities and store them on site.
Anything else, Joe?
No, not for now.
Dave, you got anything? Not, again, like Joe says, we're a little early into the thing for questioning. One that noticed with the water company thing, they said there was probably a possibility of not having enough fire flow. So again, there's something you probably gonna have to figure in the plans for a fire pump in the building too. And I'd like to see, again, sometime we're going to see crossings, what the cross sections look like, and especially that first wetland is a significant crossing. I'd like to see the cross sections of what's going to be built there and the crossing and how it's going to be done. So there's nothing in the cut sheets right now that do it. That's.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want in terms of addressing the water department thing, obviously before we get to the end, we need a letter that says they either approve or disapprove their letter that says this is what you got to do, doesn't serve us any purpose. So you'll need to work with them and get to that point of a conclusion from them.
Correct. And to answer your question, you're absolutely correct. We'll provide those details. We wanted to come to this meeting first, see what comments you had, and then we're going to get our...
I'm just making a comment of what I don't see and what I'd like to see. Again, as you're doing that, the water crossing, it's going to have to be insulated, and the gas line's going to be protected in the crossing somewhere where there's going to be an exposure of the gas, the electric, and the water. So that's part of the things. And again, with the traffic, you brought up a very good thing, Chris, with the shift change. That's the only time I see a major movement of vehicles at one time. The truck traffic, you're not even going to know they're there because...
Until you're there.
No, it's Again, you're not gonna know they're there because I've worked in these wholesale places doing construction work, and these wholesale places dug up the driveways and everything else, and they just don't move them that fast. So that I'm not worried about. But again, the vehicle traffic at the shift changes or something, that's something that should be defined a little better. Until we get, into it a little bit better, I got no further questions right now.
Liz, I know you didn't write anything, but you are, as town engineer, just, comments and concerns going
Yeah.
forward, I'd like to hear.
So, everything, started to look at the drainage, everything looked relatively in order. My only concern from a big picture is that all of the drainage was analyzed at getting to one point, basically where it leaves the site and goes into Holliston. And I don't know that I believe that accurately reflects what's going on there, because there's storage in all of the wetlands surrounding, and that's up on a high point, so it goes out into each of those wetlands. I think it makes sense to break up the analysis a little bit. But it's pretty, everything looked standard from a drainage standpoint. Otherwise, with the traffic, I think, yes, there's certainly, when you have a shift change, that's your maximum, but I think that speaks to the wholesaling, and that's part of what the traffic peer review will definitely get into this. But the whole ITE takes into account all the different, like, I think of Ken's Foods, right? That I worked there, and when there was a shift change, watch out. But that's not the that wouldn't be considered a wholesaling use. And so that's why it wouldn't have fit into that for the ITE. So I just, for some perspective, I guess. Yeah, obviously it needs to go, it does need MIPA as well, because it's over 5, it might even need an EIR.
Yeah, we'll have a couple triggers, but we definitely will have to go through the process.
So that's, for you guys that might not know, that is basically a notification.
It's got an EIR trigger?
I think it does. It's a notification to a bunch of different departments in the state, Mass Historical, I can't think of all of them because there's a whole truckload of them, to let them know what's going on, and the applicant, if they're considering doing additional work, development in the back of the site, they would need to, even if it was just broad conceptual, they would have to include that as well, because the process doesn't allow for segmentation. So that's something that I would be looking for. And then obviously I would be getting into the weeds with the conservation on this, because it's
Nice pun.
because it's
Limited project.
lots of yeah, I think that's all I have for.
Yeah, I think, in talking about the drainage, I think I would have less of a concern if there were no other development, if this was all they were going to do, that not necessarily knowing that that's the case or not, then to me it becomes more critical to differentiate the drainage area so we know what's going on within the areas, because as this gets pulled out, that we have an issue downstream and stuff. So I think it's important to know what's going on. If this was the only development, and at the end of the day, it was all going to that one location in Holliston, then I guess you could do it as one whole one, but I think it behooves us to try to separate those down now so that we can follow the path and allow, if there is something that comes in the future, we at least have an ability to evaluate that on its own.
Yeah, I think John may be able to address it better than I can, but generally speaking, I think there are 2 or 3 other development pads that would be accessible by extending this private drive, so.
Yeah, I'm sure that that's available, and that's why I'm saying, I think it would make it very difficult if we were to look at this and have the whole drainage at that point in time and then not be able to evaluate each one as they came in separately. So I think it behooves us to look at it separately. With that, I'll open it up if there's questions, unless anybody else on the board has anything else that they'd want before we do that. With that, right, yep.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm a bit of a novice. I just have a question about this.
Your name and address, please?
Tom Stearns, Brookfield Road?
Speak up.
I should know this. Brookfield Road. So this space would be
What was his
10
name?
acres.
Could you just, your name, because it has to go with
I'm
the...
sorry, Tom Stearns,
Okay, thanks.
STEARNS. So the maximum space this could occupy is 10 acres based on
The parcel that can be put on maximizes at 10 acres. The applicant is going to have to come back and show us what that 10-acre parcel looks like. Right now, they've shown that on the whole parcel that's out there. So that's not allowed. It can only be on a 10-acre parcel. So there's a process that they have to go through that defines that as a separate parcel on its own. So that it'll be a 10-acre parcel, and that will be a 10-acre parcel in the future, but the rest of it will still be available for development with the rest of the area that's out there.
That was my question. So the rest of this could be developed
Yes.
in the future?
Yes.
One curiosity is this looks like it's encroached into this? Is this
Yeah.
the quarry part of that, like, encroachment? Is that
You guys-
normal behavior?
Difference.
May I?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
So it was encroached by the neighbor, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Don't worry, we all know him.
Not unusual for him.
So does he own both the land on both places? That's why it's cool?
No, we actually served him with a cease and desist when we found out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Emily Jannery, 27 Governor's Way, Milford. So I guess I have a context, a concern, and a question. So the context is, as the land stands, there's an extensive network of hiking trails, mountain biking trails, dog walking trails, horseback riding trails in the area. And it's also a destination point for mountain bikers to come to. So as it stands, it's currently benefiting the town of Milford by, everyone goes hiking or biking, and then they go out and they go to the local small businesses of Milford, like Crafters Brewing, Prezzo's, things like that. So I see it as distinct benefit to leaving the land as it is. So the concern is that this wholesale building gets put in with a very specific requirement for the tenants. And so my concern is that the building gets put in and then a tenant can't be secured, and then nobody's benefiting from this land anymore. So I guess my question to the board is, what's the anticipated benefit of putting in this? Like, how is this going to benefit the residents of Milford and the local businesses of Milford?
Well, let's put it this way. If people are on that property, they're there illegally. It's not owned by the town, it's owned by a private citizen. I don't know if you'd want people walking through your yard or not. It's not big with me, but, they're not supposed to be there. But if it's being used that way, so be it. And if the owner is allowed there, then that happens. But to be honest, if he knows about it, he's probably going to stop people because it's an insurance liability to him to have people on his property. So we can't deal with those types of things. In terms of the benefit to the town, right now that's being taxed as open space, as open land. It'll be taxed at a business tax rate in the future once there's a building on there. So that's the benefit to the town. But the town can't stop people from developing their own property. I mean, there's nothing that allows the town to say, oh, we think it's better to do this. It's somebody's personal property. They have the option as long as it meets the requirements of the town to be able to develop it.
Thank you.
I just,
Yeah. Oh, if you have something, go ahead.
I have one question.
Yep, go ahead.
So,
Yep.
live at 438 East Main Street,
And your name?
Richard Bear, and currently there's drainage issues on East Main Street as well as traffic. So, I mean, I don't know why we'd even try and progress to add additional.
Because again, we can't really stop somebody and say, oh, it's now yours.
I've been in warehousing for almost 30 years, and I've never known a company to build a 200,000 square foot warehouse without putting out their name.
Again, those are things that there's only so much we can do or not do. I mean, as long as the company is a warehouse at the end, just like somebody builds it now, 5 years from now, someone else moves in.
Have you
We
driven by the
can't.
property? Can I ask you one question? Have you driven by the property at 429 East Main Street currently? They have a berm across the road because the water level is so high, and it's rewatering the opposite side of the street. So, I mean, there's drainage issues all over East Main Street.
If I can speak to the drainage, so one of the most concerning things for me as an engineer is the intersection of a new driveway or roadway with an existing. It's where I have personally come across more issues than I care to think about. This is I guess for the case of drainage, it's in a good position where the road is going to come down from East Main Street because they want to keep it as close. They don't want to have the crossing up any higher than they need to. So they're going to keep that road down closer to the wetland. So they're
You're gonna rewater it.
the drainage is going to go from East Main Street into the site. It's not a situation where there is any significant, if there's, I could look and tell you exactly, but there's very short amount, if any, of the pavement that's pitched into East Main Street. And this is actually currently, they're taking all of the water that is going, even from that hill, it would have to go down into a wetland and come up. It's just not, right now it's taking anything that's heading in the direction of East Main Street and sending it out to Holliston. So from a drainage perspective, I am very certain that this is not going to make anything worse.
I don't feel that four-way intersection needs any traffic.
The traffic I can't speak to as
So, during the
intelligently.
holiday season, the traffic backs up clean beyond the former Milford Athletic Club sometimes.
Well, that's Amazon.
Was another question back here?
My name is Amber Stearns. I live at 6 Brookfield Road. I understand that this is private property and that if the special permit is approved, this development cannot be stopped. I do think that it is pertinent to consider the fact that there are other things at play here besides just the development that we have in town regarding flooding, traffic. This is all wetland. The property to the north of this parcel is protected open space. There are mountain bike trails, hiking trails, passive recreation opportunities to the north of this. As climate change impacts us more and more, we're going to receive more rain, more flooding. We're already decreasing the habitat that we have for what's even left. Like, by building any other developments that are not necessary in this case, then I don't see any benefit to all of this habitat for protected wildlife. Yes, it's a private property, but we don't live in a vacuum. Like, this is gonna impact things outside of just permitting and legal issues. So I just wanted to say that and comment on it, and I think that it's something that the developers should be considering in regards to their community and the health of the community and the habitat there.
Anybody else? Yep. Larry, did you get the name? You also have the names?
No, I couldn't hear it.
My name's Amber Stearns.
Oh, Emma, yeah, I got Emma.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead, sir.
Kevin Keenan, 6 Geneseo Circle. If you may remember from past meetings, I'm a representative of the New England Mountain Bike Association. Understandably, we have illegal trails in there that Mr. Meehan doesn't necessarily know about or care about. But we do have our land that's just to the north and west. And Milford has some town land in there as well that is protected land. last time I was here, we were talking about Old Cedar Street and that development there, and I was able to work out with Mr. Nowlin to get some parking spaces to be able to access the rail trail for outside users. I'm wondering if there's something that we could work out with Mr. Meehan in a similar situation here, where he gets to use his property for what he wants to do, but maybe we could get some, I don't know what the word for it is, but some kind of access so that we could easily access the Milford trails, the Halston trails, and those kind of things. Maybe parking spaces, a leeway to allow us to build a trail through there to get to the existing trails and the other trails. Just something that...
You'll have to talk to the applicant about that.
Right, and I'm talking to you, but I know that the applicant may be able to hear me at this point.
Yeah.
So,
I think part of it may be, I'm not sure how close that parcel is to the parcel that you're talking about in terms of trying to get from there to there, if there is further development.
Yeah.
But this, yeah, you're over there, I know.
Milford's here.
Yeah. So I mean, to get across from there to there, a significant amount of wetland impacts that would need to be permitted and things like that to get there, I
Oh,
believe.
yeah, and the Boy Scouts love building bridges. So we had a Girl Scout build a bridge last year and the year before. So,
Well, I'm sure these gentlemen will bring this back to him and ask that question. But
as far as
I don't know that it's that simple from that location. That's the only thing I'm
no,
saying.
it's never simple, and I've been in that section a lot recently, and it's very flooded from Beaver Dam. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be trouble, but we'd always be open to having more parking spaces to be able to access those open trails. There's hundreds of users in those trails every day, and we have 30 parking spots. So, just something to think about. Thank you.
I'm sure they'll bring that back to the applicant. Anything else? Anything by the board? I mean, obviously, we need to continue this. I would assume this was for the applicant to get a flavor of where we need to go and not go. I think we've accomplished that. If there's anything else that you would like to ask us prior to... Joe, did you have anything else while I...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just, in reference to the potential benefit to the town, based on preliminary estimate for the size of this building, we're estimating that the tax bill on this building will be somewhere between $900,000 and $970,000 a year, based on the size and today's construction costs. And that will be obviously a building that will not impact school systems. We've all made these arguments before. The Milford has a dual tax rate, $24.09 per thousand for this type of building, and this would be another very, very significant payment to the town. Relative to the comments regarding the use of the property for private purposes, I listened carefully to the comments that were made. We will discuss those in between meetings and see if there's any way in which we can accommodate the general public. I'm not sure that it can because of the configurations, but we will look at it. And then, Mr. Chair, only I would, I don't know how long I'm going to guess that you probably don't want us back until you've had the traffic study peer reviewed. Am I correct?
That is correct.
So then I will obviously leave it to the discretion of the board as to when we come back, and I'll provide you with the necessary continuances based on the timelines for filing decisions, et cetera.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Continue, because we need to continue the hearing for a date specific, obviously, so, we're here.
That's why,
We do it to the,
do you have anybody in mind that you would,
do it to the 19th.
Whoever you want to work with.
TEP was the only one I knew of off the top of my head.
Well, Joe.
BSC, they've done,
You can,
I don't know if they've done any peer reviews for,
Who did the one for Amazon, you, Joe?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Who did the last one at the corner? Look back and see because somebody should have done
Yeah, we've got the last ones, so.
Yeah, well, I want to know who did the peer review, though, in terms of getting a consultant.
No, that's what I mean.
Okay,
We've got-
yeah.
We've got.
Because that may be the best to go with.
Right.
Okay.
I think, given the timing, we're in the middle of January, your March meetings are the 5th, which is, I think is too soon. The 19th is sounding a little better. And I believe that would.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take us a while to, I know it sounds crazy, but it'll take us a while to get somebody under contract. Right?
Right.
That we can't, because it's town and we have to go through the process. It's not something that we're going to turn around tomorrow.
Yeah, and they may be.
And they may be
they're the
busy,
ones that
so,
will be paying
yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
But in terms of the meetings that you've already set, the March 19th meeting, I think they're amenable to continue it. You need to continue to a date specific. And between John and Joe, if he's
fine.
still on, I would suggest that. And if that turns out not to be enough time, they can request in writing that hearing not be opened and be further continued to some other date that hopefully by then we'll figure something better out.
Yeah. No, I think that's a reasonable point to at least say right now would be the second meeting in March.
Joe wants to say something.
I think Joe's.
Yep. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes. So with respect to the board, thank you. The applicant would respectfully request that it be placed on the agenda for the March 19th, 2024 Planning Board hearing. And that we continue both the site plan application and the special permit application to that date.
Yeah, I think we'll, as that goes forward, Joe, hopefully we'll be able to get into more of the site plan stuff. Obviously, we didn't deal with some of those issues at this point, but, I think we wanted to get over the, what I would consider the special permit issues, and at least get those out to you and have you work on those. So I think that's appropriate.
And Mr. Chairman, I think we all took pretty good notes. So I think relative to the site plan, the presentation that was made, the comments that were made, we can look at incorporating any changes and getting you a better idea of the drainage if as and when the property would be to further developed.
Yep.
And we'll have the reruns on YouTube and Milford TV as well. So.
Anything you missed?
With that, any other comments, questions from the board? With that, I'll take a motion to continue to March 19th.
Make the motion.
Motion by Chris to continue until March 19th, the public hearing. Seconded by Joe.
Second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of continuing to March 19th will signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous at 4. If you guys, obviously the meeting will continue to the 19th. Public, if you want to come back in, that's the time frame that we'll be next looking at this in terms of a public hearing. Normally, we schedule them for the first thing on the agenda, so again, it'll be scheduled for 7:02, provided there's nothing else that's going on. We try to run them as close to that time as possible, but until we get the exact schedule on the March meeting, it may be somewhat different, but that's normally how we do those. So that'll be the next time we talk about it is in part of a public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
I'll reach out and try to get any comments that you might have, because we'll have to Concom.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. I'm on the website.
I think it was Woodland.
Woodlands.
That name ring a bell?
I don't know.
Just write that down. Pretty sure it's Woodland. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let everybody file out.
Yep, see ya. Okay, so where'd we leave off?
ZBA variance referral.
Yep.
60 Highland Street, Nina Hoyle. I'll read Larry's far as letter. The applicant requests a variance to allow for the construction of carport adjacent to the single-family dwelling on the subject property. The applicant recently received a special permit to add a supplemental suite within the single-family dwelling. The proposed 22 by 29 three-car carport is to be separated from the house by 1 foot. The previous attached garage was converted to living space as part of the supplemental suite remodeling. Proposed carport is to be 10 feet from the side property line. At its closest point, 15 feet is required in the RB district. The proposed carport has been shifted to the west wall past the original garage door that was on the south wall of the house. Therefore, I recommend a favorable to the ZBA.
Yeah, I think the plan should be the third or fourth sheet. No. It's right after the application, yeah, third or fourth sheet in. And then the last sheet in the packet's the aerial, so you can see how things are situated.
Any questions, comments from the board?
Just a trivial question, the 10-foot offset from the property line, is that within?
15 is required.
Okay.
That's
why the...
That's why the
The
variance.
variance,
Yeah,
right?
that's the
That's why, it was a trivial question, but I figured that was the point.
Yep.
Wanted to make sure.
Although the driveway, not that the driveway matters, the driveway's right along the property line.
Right, driveway can go on the property line, but
Yeah.
it's the structure itself, correct? Yeah,
It already is, too. That's what I'm saying. The driveway is actually there.
is on the property, yeah.
So ZBA had their meeting, and they approved it?
No. This is, this is for us to send a recommendation to ZBA. So this will go to ZBA, whatever we say, then they'll do whatever they want.
Well, they're gonna do the supplemental suite as a special permit, but that was previous, so.
Yeah.
So they got that. This,
They got the, yeah, they got the special, they have
This is
to,
the same house?
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize that, okay.
yeah, they got part of
it would
the
have been nice if
space.
they did it all together.
Well, I don't know that they necessarily figured out that since they don't have a garage anymore, it's part of the supplemental suite, and now all the cars are outside, so, yeah. It would have made sense to do it all at once, but, hey,
I mean, obviously, the question is, to me, is a three-car carport doesn't necessarily go in the neighborhood, to be honest.
nope.
I mean, certainly, I can understand somebody putting in a two-car carport or a two-car
Exactly.
garage and not being in front of us and park one car behind the other, which would be my recommendation, but I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Right.
I mean, I don't think there's the inalienable right to have a three-car garage, so I'm not sure how much of a hardship it is to
Correct.
have three cars, and that's effectively what they're asking us to do.
Yeah, I think if you look at their site plan, the rear corner meets the setback requirement, but because the house is set on there at an angle, it's not parallel to the street or square with the lot anywhere, the front corner is only 10 feet away.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean, two cars would fit, a two-car garage would fit,
yep,
without having a variance.
right.
Any comments from the neighbors?
I don't believe there's anyone
wouldn't-
here,
yeah,
but they'd probably go to the ZBA meeting more than they'd come to our meeting.
They get notified.
Ours is a recommendation to
They get
ZBA.
notified of the disease.
Yeah, the ZBA.
Right.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we get send a favorable recommendation.
Motion by Dave, send a favorable recommendation. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Chris. Any further discussion? Hearing not, all those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No.
Opposed? Opposed?
Opposed?
2 in favor, 2 opposed.
Who's,
Joe and I were the two Joes were opposed.
oh, okay.
Makes it easier that way. Planning Board member appointments for the Comprehensive Plan Subcommittee. As we discussed the last time, the committee, 3 members of the Planning Board would be members of the Comprehensive Plan Subcommittee. I don't know if you guys have thought about it, who would like to serve on the committee or not. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I think I'll take 7. I'll take this out of order to some extent, only because we have had status update on comprehensive plan. Larry and I did meet with the consultant, and based on that conversation, it is still, the intent of the consultant and the town that we would, to the extent that we can do it, we'll run the subcommittee meetings around planning board meetings. There will be some that we can't, but the consultant was on board to use our standing Tuesday meetings as a beginning point, at least, to do subcommittee meetings. So I just wanted to throw that out before we talked about the people, because to the extent that that all of us want to be involved with it or not, you'll have that option too, because it will be at our meetings. We'll probably, we haven't really talked about it yet, whether we want to do it before first agenda item or last agenda item or whatever, but we will, it will be to a large extent based on our meeting, so you'll be involved in it no matter whether you're a part of the subcommittee or not.
Yeah, and on individual meetings, we'd have the flexibility unless there's a public hearing that night. You could put the subcommittee meeting first,
Right.
If you prefer, and
Yeah, that's
so
right.
you got flexibility that way
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there was anything else in terms of updates, see how we can finish that item and then go back to 6.
Well, only to try and get a handle on when we might want to have the kickoff, as they call it, where we'd have them show up at a meeting, but we were kind of shooting for getting the subcommittee put together. So once you guys finalize your membership tonight, the only one we don't have formalized yet is Concom, because the agenda item sheet for number 6, which we skipped to do this, Chris Moran was appointed by FinCom. So once Concom figures out who it is, then we'll be able to do the kickoff meeting. But I'm assuming that Concom's got it on the agenda for the 25th of this month. So by next month, we'll know who's on first, so to speak. So whether you want to, we can do either the 6th or the 20th of February as the kickoff meeting based on what we can glean from their schedule and their availability, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, what it may be best to do is to get back to them and
Right.
ask them which meeting in February they want to attend.
Right.
And we'll set that up as the kickoff meeting, if that's acceptable to the board members. I think that's probably appropriate. I don't, based on their conversations, unless there's something specifically going on those nights, I think they'll be available. If there's one of those two, they'll be available.
So at least tonight, it's going to be one of, as far as the board's concerned,
Yep.
either February meeting would be good for the kickoff meeting based on the consultants.
Yeah.
Okay?
So with that being said, we do need to, we need to complete our end, we need to name 3 members to the subcommittee. I'm, as being the
Volunteering?
one that's been involved with this from day one, I don't want to take, I don't want to take someone else's spot, but I have no problem staying on and being on the subcommittee. So, and I do know, I work with those guys.
Your knowledge and your participation already.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's one down.
Joe, you were the one who ran for it on your election, so.
I would like to participate, but I don't want to take anybody else's spot
No,
either.
that's,
As I said, I don't think this is going to preclude any member from being involved. That's the one thing. And when we were setting it up, when Larry and I were talking to them, we certainly made that clear, and they made it clear that, the more people involved, the better, and certainly if all members of the planning board wanted to be involved, that's not a problem, but we do need to name 3.
That's 2.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Go ahead. If
You want to do it, Chris? You can have another thing to do. I was just going to say, do I really want another thing to do at this point?
That's what I was going to
So,
say. If you don't want to do
anyway.
something else,
Yeah.
I'll do it. Other than that,
you took the speech from me. I was going to say, based on some statement of interest that have come along and my involvement probably with the high school side of it, yeah, I think that I'll defer to you to be on this and concentrate on those other aspects of the town business and we'll be a part of this comprehensive plan anyways too, based on
don't
what Joe
forget,
said.
if the high school goes, we're going to have to, there's one of us going to have to be on
Yes, exactly.
that committee, so.
So Joe, and Babe.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
That's what we had on the agenda. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Joe to adjourn. Do I have a second?
A second.
Seconded by Chris. Any further discussion? Hearing not, all those in favor of adjourning will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I gotta read it.
Unanimous at 4.
Where-